Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we've got an interesting one. This box just came in to me from North Carolina. I thought I would share this with you and show you how to make a reel work. So I've got a Penn Battle 6000, Battle II 6000 in 3 bags. So I've been asked to put it back together. So I love a puzzle as much as the next guy. And hopefully if you find yourself in this situation, you follow some of the tips that I'll give you along the way. And we'll see if we can be successful in restoring this reel. So it's not an unusual situation. It's to find yourself with a reel that's in parts. And the reason for that is a lot of folks will take them apart. Sometimes they're waiting, they have to order a piece or something, they take it and then the piece comes and they get a little bit flustered. They can't remember quite the way that the reel came or what pieces went where or what have you, and the next thing you know, they need a little help. So we're going to give that a little help today, and I'll give you some advice along the way. So whenever I get something like this, which is again not unusual, the first thing I always do is go and get the schematic. That's the breakout of all of the pieces and parts in a burst diagram. It tells you where the parts are, what the parts are, and it explains kind of the sequence that they go in. So for example, if I have a section of the bag that has all of the bearings in the anti-reverse segment, I know which way to go in terms of where each one belongs. So let's do what I do first, which is to open this up and make sure that we have all the parts. So the first one is the basic rotor assembly, and this one's intact. I just want to make sure that it's opening and closing, which it is. So when I come up here and I look at the pieces and parts and all of this, we can kind of check that off because those haven't been touched. So rotor assembly is okay. Next up appears to be the spool assembly with some internal drive parts. So let's go in there. Here's your spool. The spool is absent the drag washers. So this will tell us exactly how the drag washers go in. Hopefully the drag washers are in here. I've been told all the pieces and parts are in here. I have no reason not to believe that that is the case. And I'm taking out some other pieces as well. I'm taking out the axle shaft and the handle. And for the moment, I'm just going to put those into my parts tray. And I use a lot of parts trays. They're typically the bottoms of milk jugs, but they just help me organize pieces and parts, particularly when I get in a situation like this and I just don't know what's where. So let's see if we can put the spool back together, if we can find those parts. They look like they're in here. So if we can put the spool back and come up with a complete assembly, then we're in a better position to make good here. And here's one of these child locks that's just going to kill me, right? I guess you have to be a child to do this. There we go. We got that. So let's be careful here because a lot of these parts are small. And we can see that we have a couple of pieces and parts here in here. So here is your drag assembly. You have several of the washers. 2, 3, 4, 5 washers, 5 pieces of metal. I'm just looking for the spring that goes on top. I'm not seeing the catch spring here. Okay. Yeah, I don't see the C-clip at the moment. Maybe that's in another basket. Okay, so to get most of these out of the way, we can just kind of address this without the C-clip for the moment. Oh, we have a, would that be this? Well, we're gonna play along with some of this, okay? So let's go to the schematic here. We'll find out that there's a eared washer in the middle and that there's fabric washers in between. We're going to use a little Cal's Universal drag grease on these. And this project's going to take some time, so if you want to pause the video and go get some coffee or something and come on back, I'll completely understand. Okay, I use a rubber latex glove on my non-working hand. It's a tool too. I like to put the Cal's Universal Drag Grease onto the drag. Then we're going to put the flat washer in, the round washer in next. We're going to repeat this process, alternating the round washer with the eared washer. Just rubbing it in. I don't want to have too much excess on that. We're going to put the eared washer in, which has the little tabs on it. They fit in the channel of the spool as such. I can do the next one. Again, just a light coating. The idea is to keep these flexible. You don't need to overlube them. As a matter of fact, when you go to operate your drag, if you've overlubed them, it's only going to squeeze the lube out, and it's not going to be very effective. Then we're going to put the second eared washer in, put the last of these in, and then we're going to set this aside and hope that we find the little retention clip that goes on top. And this does appear to have a retention clip as opposed to a C-clip, so it's quite possible that the schematic I pulled is a little bit later in the game, but I'm sure it'll show up here somewhere. So we'll just put that aside. That's a complete spool assembly without the top piece of it. I'm looking here and I'm thinking that these three screws, these very small screws here, are going to go into the top of that. I just have to find out what that is. I don't think it's this piece. It's not that piece. So stay tuned. We'll try and do as best we can. In the meantime, I'm going to take those three small screws. I'm going to put them into a second parts basket with that spool assembly. I'm going to get this out of the way so that that doesn't knock into anything. And open up another package. So that's the first part. Here's the package with the side plate. Let's see what side plate this is. So this is the main gear assembly up top. Bump guard. Here we go. This is what we were looking for before. This is going to go up top on the drag washers. So let's take those three little pieces. And so here's an example of where the schematic wasn't exactly on, but you can nonetheless kind of figure it out, which is sort of what we just did here. And this one looks like it's got some small Phillips heads, so let's see if we can do it with the Phillips head screwdriver that I have. And it looks like we can. So I like to start these screws ahead of schedule, just because they're difficult for me to get in after you line the holes. In this case, we just got lucky here. Okay, so the spool assembly then is done, so we're going to go put that over here. Then we're going to come back in on the side plate assembly. This one, there's nothing that needs to be done here except that a bearing is going to go in this. So we can snap that bearing back into place there. Put that piece in. And that bag is done now. So let's go over to the other side then. Still got a couple of pieces here I'm kind of wondering about. So we'll do our best to do what we can do here. And I really don't like laying stuff out on the table like this, but you know, what the heck, right? Alright, so next up we would have a crosswind gear. I'm looking on the crosswind block and that just sits on studs. This is the crosswind block. Not quite sure what this is. I guess we'll find out sooner or later on this one. On the back side of this gear there is a grease access point, and there's a cap. Let's go ahead and put the cap on. There's also a secondary bushing that goes in here, so I just saw that on the table somewhere. Here it is. Put that bushing back in here. Now those bushings are sealed. We don't need to do anything with them at the moment. There's a little holder here that holds the crosswind block as it goes up and down. And there should be two screws that go along with that. So let's take a look and see what kind of screws are in there. Look like they're round-headed, threaded. Looks like these may be the two screws. May or may not be. And that's one of the problems that you have with schematics. You really don't get the best of the definition on these. I'm going to think that maybe it's these two. You're going to have to play it by ear. We'll see. That looks like it's a better fit. And that's going to line up here. And we'll see. So again, this is, as I mentioned, this is going to be something that will take a little time. But hey, always up for a challenge, like doing puzzles. This isn't exactly a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku, but that's okay. So we'll put this one in if it fits. That doesn't fit, so we're going to have to go back to try a different one. Don't over tighten. If you run into the place where you're over tightening, chances are that you're going to cross strip. So at the risk of trying to figure it out, just try a different one. That doesn't seem to fit either. There's enough of them here. So I'm concentrating. That's not it either. So you can also do this by process of elimination. You can go back and figure out the other pieces that don't belong, and that way you generally can come back into figuring out what does belong. But they didn't make these reels for videos. They made these reels for operational purposes. And so I apologize if it takes a little bit longer than it should, but I'm sure we will get back on track with this one shortly. So the way I'm looking at this one is it belongs along the rail, tail down. I'm just having a little bit of problems here, so I apologize. Okay, I think I got the right screw there. Nope, maybe not. It's not showing as a flat screw, but there are the threaded flat screws here, so let's try those. Well, that one certainly fits. Let's see if there's a second one. There's a second one here. I don't know if that's the right screw yet. We're just going to keep going through this and we'll figure it out if we see that we've got a screw that doesn't belong there. But for now, that seems to be a good one. These I know are side plate screws, these three. So I can put those over there for sure. Okay, so with that in place, then we can put in the crosswind gear. And again, we're rebuilding this reel, so we might as well make sure that we've got all of this set properly. So we'll take the crosswind gear here, make sure that it's properly lubed. I'm using Penn's precision reel grease for this. I want to get it on both sides. That slips in next. Still don't think those are the right screws. I think those screws belong in here. I'm going to take that out. There's got to be an answer. And it's not that one. So these screws have a taper on it, much like the screws on the sides of Jigmaster internal plates. those two I'm believing go inside this plate here like that. So we're going to just continue on this puzzle solving that way. This I know belongs up top. All of these belong up top. This belongs up top. This belongs up top. Yeah, that belongs up top. Up top. So again, looking for 2 screws. This is 3. So I'm thinking these 3 are probably going to be for this. Let's see what we have here. Nope, these 3 are going to be for this. They're a little taper screw. So those will go in here, which holds down the anti-reverse bearing. These are 2 shims which belong on the main gear. I'll just put those there for the moment. So we're getting down to the point where it's eeny, meeny, miny, mo. These have got 3 screws. I'm a little bit confused here because I was thinking I would find flat screws for this. Let's find the axle shaft and see what we have here in terms of what fits into the axle shaft. Okay, that wouldn't be it. So even though you have a roundabout idea of where these screws go, you don't necessarily have a absolute match to them on the schematic. So now we're short. We're short some screws for the tie down. We're thinking these 2 are going to go on here for the crosswind block. And I'm not seeing 2 equal screws. Oh, wait a minute, maybe these 2. I guess we got to try these in the hole down. And again, you got to be careful with these things. You really don't want to rip them up. You don't want to cross thread, especially when you're playing a little bit of a guessing game here. I do know that these screws are threaded. These seem to be going in okay, but they're too long. So it may be that those 2 that I just put in there belong here, and those 2 belong on the other side. So let's try these. So you can see a lot of this is just process of elimination. It's just educated guesses, I guess. And I'm losing more than I'm winning, but what I'm not losing is my patience, because you need a lot of patience when you're trying to work a reel like this. All right, well, that one's taken. I didn't think that was going to be it, but for now, it looks like those 2 that I was thinking were the side plate screws are actually the guide screws. All right, so on our way again. All right, we can go to the main gear then. So looking at the main gear on the schematic, we have the side plate bearing, the main gear, which we're going to put a little grease on. I'll put a little bit on the back end shaft. Now I'm concerned here. This main gear needs to be replaced. So that's probably what happened if there was a problem with this reel. These two, the teeth here, are just completely chewed off, and this reel's not going to work. So we're going to have to come back to this with a new main gear that fixes that. So let's just continue as if this main gear works, just so that you get the education on it. The main gear, after it gets cleaned up and lubed, can sit in here. Yeah, might as well do the top end. So this is what I was looking for. This is our pinion gear. The first bearing in, and then the sleeve for the anti-reverse. So under normal circumstances, we're going to need to lube this. I'm going to place that into the carrier, and you need to push that bearing down so that it is seated. And you'll know it's seated when you look down here and you see the pinion gear sitting on that sleeve there. Okay, next up then would be the anti-reverse. So this one, it's hard to tell when they do these in the schematic which way works, but I believe this is the top. You're going to know right away when you put it in, because if it's not, I'm going to pull the whole thing out, just put it on there. So the pinion gear is going to turn this way when you crank, and it should stop on the anti-reverse. So this is the proper way that it gets set. Okay, that goes in next. Then it says we have the main bearing that goes on top of that. A sleeve, and then the bearing, and then we have the tie down. And we can do all of this regardless of whether that main gear is broken or not, because the main gear is below here where we're going to work. Okay, there's a flat spot on this side that goes up against the anti-reverse mechanism, so line your holes up. And then we're going to grab those 3 little screws that we think belong there. Put each of those in. And you'll have to bear with me, you all know my issues with small pieces. That's 2. One more. That's not it. That's a different screw. Okay, so that's the upper anti-reverse sequence here. With the carrier in, just tighten these down. That's that. You just want to give it a turn. And we're turning the way we should be turning. Okay, then again, we're going to go next for the anti-reverse mechanism. So we have a collar, that's what this is, goes next. Collar's got a little spring on it. And according to this, the spring points up. Next up, I think, is the plastic part. And the plastic part has grips around the shaft, and that little up point goes in the sleeve. I think we could probably put that in the sleeve without the trying to mate it the other way, so that it sits like this. And then that sits over the stud like this, and you'll see that it'll throw as we're running. It's going to pull the handle in, and when you go to backstop it, it should throw the handle out. This is going to grab the slots inside the other piece here. Okay, with that on, then I think we go to the rotor. Again, just checking, so we can put the rotor on next. You give that a spin, make sure that it stops on the back end. There you go. That's got a cap screw on it. Okay, and that gets tightened down with a this is a 15mm wrench. Okay, and then we have that one's not fitting, we'll just try this one. These at least are the same thread. Well, neither one of them is fitting now, so got a problem with up here. No. Well, it may be that little circular thing that doesn't appear to be part of this reel, the two screws that I'm setting aside for that are probably the screws for this. I think they are. They kind of look like the ones that I would typically look for. Yeah, those are the right screws. I'm not quite sure what that circular thing is yet. I don't see it on my parts diagram here, but that doesn't mean it doesn't belong. If it was a slammer, oh, I think I see it. It looks like it's under the slammer side. So there's this cap appears to have the, there you go, that's what happened. This was taken apart. So this is going to go in the cap, and this is going to be the seal for the cap. And this is going to be the bottom of the cap. As such, and then we're going to have to find the two screws that belong for that. But these appear to be the right screws for this. Okay, so playing along as though we have a good gear, these two shims are going to go on the outside of the main gear. And the side plate's going to go on. Then the three side plate screws are going to go on. That should be the big ones we have in the bucket here. So this is an interesting puzzle. I'm not sure I would recommend anybody picking a reel up like this at a stand, you know, flea market stand or on eBay or any of that stuff, unless you you really wanted to play hide and seek. But it's a fun project to try and get going on. So we seem to be pretty successful here at the moment. Still a little bit confused about that back end plate there. That should be a tapered screw to my thinking. So somewhere along the line we don't have the right screws for the axle or the other assembly. Alright, so those are the three, and then we get a bump guard here. These bump guards, be careful with, there's a little tab there. If you don't do it right, you can snap it off. Bump guard comes down, and then we should have the thin one. That's probably this one. That fits there, so the lower case is complete now. And now I have 3 screws. So you'll see that the shaft is not running up and down because the back end teeth on that main gear are gone. I have 3 teeth, I have 3 screws, 2 holes. Here's a case of just trying to figure out which 2 look alike. These 2 look alike. We'll go put them in here. I don't think they're the right screws. So I think these screws probably, we need to figure that out. I don't think these are the right screws. No, they can't be. They're not the right screws. Alright, we've got to find 2 screws for this. Otherwise, the cap goes on, the shaft goes on, just trying to line up the pieces and parts at the moment. Sometimes if you get these misaligned, you can just kind of work them up with a screwdriver to get the pieces correct. Sometimes it's just a little battle of patience, but eventually you can get them all to line up. Here's a little trick. If it's not lining up from the bottom, go from the top. Like safe cracking, we just did it that way, so it should come up the other way now. So I apologize for the length of this, but I wanted to make sure everybody got the idea. So now you know that you're up on this. When we get these 2 screws, this whole assembly is going to go this way. That'll tighten down. We got a floating plate at the moment. We got 2 screws that are not working here. I'm thinking one of the 2 on the main shaft. And then this is not locking now because I didn't lock the plate, but eventually that should work as well. There we go. I think we got it now. At least we got a piece of it, but that won't be any good without the other one. And then you just put the handle on. So wow, what a task. But again, the reel won't work without the new main gear, so we'll go get ourselves a main gear. It'll certainly work in terms of running the top, but you won't spool, and that's going to work nice when we get that new main gear. So that's kind of how you put it together. And again, we have 2 screws in there incorrectly. We'll go figure it out from the parts diagram here. We'll make sure that we have the right parts before we proceed with the final. But until that time, we're kind of stuck on this one. So lots of lessons learned there. Make sure you have all the parts. In this case, we had a couple more parts than were needed. I got a little spring here, which I don't recognize. I think I recognize it. Looks like something out of a Dakota. 2 side plate pieces here, or this may belong inside the main cap. We'll have to see. It's got a tension spring on it. It's quite possible. Got an arm here that doesn't belong to anything that I'm familiar with, or a chrome strip. But other than that, it looks like most of it's checked out, and once we get a main gear with some teeth on it, it'll be going up and down, and then we'll solve for the top piece here with the drag. As a matter of fact, let's just take a look here. Well, now this looks like the piece that it should be. Alright, so until we can get to that, I can't return the reel to the customer, but I will certainly let them know that, that's the work that needs to be done here. Well, look, thanks for sticking with this one. It's been quite a chore, and it's not quite done yet, but I did want to give you the process. Get the schematics, check out all the pieces and parts, make sure that they're all the ones that you're looking for in the bags. Once you do that, take an organized approach. Work on one section at a time. You saw how we worked on the bottom part of the reel here. You saw how we worked on the middle part of the reel here. You saw how we worked on the spool. We didn't have to take the rotor apart because that was working, but you did see how we went up top and worked with that end as well. So that's a couple of clues to how to work with a reel that comes completely disassembled, and how to put it back together again with not a lot of knowledge about what it is that you're trying to get done here. So with that, I thank you for watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Please stay tuned for more videos.